I've had the cylinder head off enough small turbocharged 4-cylinders to know what a modern compact SUV really costs. So here's the whole deal up front. 12 small SUVs that people are buying by the hundreds of thousands right now, the exact part inside each one that goes wrong, what the repair runs when it does, and the specific model I'd hand my own money over for instead. No vague warnings. Part numbers, recall numbers, dollars. A few of these are going to sting because some are genuinely nice to drive and one of them was the best-selling thing in its segment for years running. 3 things to hang on to while we work through this. At number 5, there's a transmission so troublesome that the manufacturer settled a class action for $277.7 million and extended the warranty to exactly 84,000 miles. A number somebody chose deliberately, and you'll understand why when we get there. At number 3, there's a recall covering more than 694,000 SUVs where the official remedy, at first, was a software update and a plastic tube to route leaking gasoline down onto the road. And at number 10, an SUV whose own maker gave up on it after 39,260 total sales in 3 model years. I'll tell you now that I'm not neutral about a couple of these, and I'll tell you where I'm reasoning rather than reporting. Let's go. Here's the thread running through nearly every failure on this list, and once you see it, you can't stop seeing it. Roughly 15 years ago, the industry decided the way to hit fuel economy targets was to shrink the engine and bolt a turbocharger to it. Take a 2.4 liter, cut it to 1.5, spin a turbine off the exhaust, and shove the intake air back in under pressure. On the test cycle, it works beautifully. In your driveway, it means a small engine carrying a 3,500-pound vehicle is running higher cylinder pressure, higher combustion temperature, and more thermal cycling than the bigger engine it replaced. All day, every day, for a decade. Think of it like running a small window air conditioner in a big room. It'll cool the room. It'll also never shut off, and it'll die years before the properly sized unit would have. That's the comparison I'll keep coming back to. The downsized, boosted, complicated powertrain built to clear a number on paper versus the proven, unstressed one built to clear 200,000 miles. 12 examples of the first. A dozen alternatives that are the second. Number 1. The Chevrolet Equinox and its identical twin, the GMC Terrain, model years 2018 through 2021 with the 1.5-liter turbo. Start here because it's the biggest volume offender and because the data is brutal. Consumer Reports, working from repair data covering more than 380,000 vehicles, named the Equinox the least reliable compact SUV, along with its GMC counterpart the Terrain, with owners reporting transmission computer problems, fluid leaks severe enough to require complete transmission removal, and recurring body control module failures. But the transmission isn't what I'd worry about first, it's the oil. That engine, GM calls it the Licks in 2018 through 2022 form, rated at 170 horsepower, turns up in the Equinox, Terrain, Malibu, and Buick Encore GX. The worst examples consume a quart of oil every 1,000 to 2,000 miles. That is not a SEEP. That is an engine that will be 3 quarts down between oil changes on a car whose owner does everything the book says. And here's the part people miss. Low oil doesn't just mean an engine that runs a bit dry. When the level drops, the timing chain tensioner gets starved, the turbocharger's journal bearing gets starved, and the rod and main bearings start knocking. One cheap failure cascading into 3 expensive ones. By the time the light comes on, you're not adding oil, you're pricing engines. This isn't new for GM either. A class action over the earlier 2.4-liter Ecotec in 2014 to 2017 Equinox and Terrain models alleged consumption of up to a quart every 1,000 miles, and cited an internal report indicating the company had known about the problem since at least 2010. I want to be careful here, that's an allegation in a complaint, not a finding of fact. But the pattern of the response is documented and we'll come back to it. Buy instead the Mazda CX-5. The redesigned 2026 car starts at 30 wind-hour charge at 85, including destination, uses a naturally aspirated 2.5-liter making 187 horsepower, and comes with all-wheel drive standard on every trim, a feature you pay extra for in most of this segment. No turbo, no boost, no oil consumption saga. It's slower off the line than the Chevy. It will also still be running when the Chevy's on a flatbed. That's the biggest one out of the way. The next one is smaller, sells in smaller numbers, and has a worse complaint record per car than almost anything else in this class. Number 2. The Jeep Compass 2018 through 2022 with the 2.4-liter Tiger Shark. Quick, because the numbers do the talking. Across that generation, the 2.4-liter Tiger Shark accounts for 1,604 of 1,629 logged complaints, 93%, running at roughly 321 complaints per year against a compact SUV segment average of about 31, 10 times the segment norm. Every one of the 11 fires recorded across that generation came from a Tiger Shark car. Oil consumption again, plus an oil filter housing that likes to leak, plus a 9-speed automatic we'll discuss properly in a minute. Here's the honest caveat, and it matters if you're shopping used. The 2.0-liter turbo that arrived for 2023 reads like a completely different vehicle. 92 complaints across 3 model years, no fires, right around the segment baseline. So this isn't avoid the Compass, it's avoid that specific engine in those specific years. By the way, if you drive an SUV and want to keep it reliable for hundreds of thousands of miles without wasting money at the repair shop, I put together a guide called the 500K Mile Car Care Bible. It covers 101 habits that can help your SUV last longer, the warning signs you should never ignore, and how to spot mechanic upsells that quietly drain your wallet. To get your copy, just scan the QR code on screen with your phone's camera or grab it from the first pinned comment below. Buy instead a Toyota Corolla Cross. Starts around $25,035 for the front drive base car. Dull. Wonderfully, profitably dull. Number 3, and this is the first flag I planted. The Ford Escape with the 1.5-liter EcoBoost 3-cylinder, model years 2020 through 2022. Ford recalled more than 694,000 Bronco Sport and Escape vehicles because the fuel injector may crack and leak, which may cause a fire, covering 2021 to 2024 Bronco Sport and 2020 to 2022 Escape models with the 1.5-liter engine. Ford identified injector cracking on 8 vehicles that experienced underhood fires. Now sit with the shape of the fix. An earlier round of this recall covered nearly 43,000 SUVs, and the remedy did not include repairing the fuel leaks. Owners got a drain tube installed to route leaking gasoline away from hot surfaces, plus software to detect a pressure drop. On the big 2025 campaign, the initial step was again an engine control software update, free until a final remedy became available. A tube. To carry gasoline safely to the ground past the exhaust so your SUV can leak fuel without setting itself on fire. That's not a repair, that's plumbing around a defect. And that's before you get to coolant intrusion, which has haunted the small EcoBoost family for years. Coolant working its way past a seal or a cracked head into the cylinder where it doesn't belong. A class action over the 1.5-liter in the Escape Infusion settled in 2022 with a warranty extension to 15 years or 150,000 miles. That extension is real money for anyone who qualifies, and if you own one of these, go find out whether your VIN is covered before you spend another dollar. Buy instead the Honda CR-V. A base one lands just over $32,000 including destination. The hybrid adds about $4,000, and all-wheel drive another $1,500 on top. It's the most conventional answer on this list, and it's the right one. Number 4 is the same problem wearing hiking boots, the Ford Bronco Sport. Same 1.5-liter 3-cylinder, same recall, same injectors. The campaign covers 2021 through 2024 Bronco Sports right alongside the Escapes. Rugged fender flares, a genuinely useful shape, and underneath it the exact engine we just spent 4 minutes on. If you love the look, buy a Subaru Crosstrek and put a roof basket on it. Moving on. Let me stop the count for a second because you've now seen enough to spot the pattern yourself. 4 vehicles in, and not one of them failed because somebody built something badly by accident. Everyone failed because a small, hard-working, highly stressed powertrain was chosen over a larger, lazier one for reasons that had nothing to do with you. From here, the failures get more expensive and more structural. We're leaving oil consumption behind and getting into transmissions and whole platforms, which is where 4-figure bills become 5-figure ones. And number 5 is the one I flagged at the start, the 84,000-mile number and the arithmetic behind it. Number 5. The Nissan Rogue, 2014 through 2018, and the continuously variable transmission inside it. A CVT has no gears. Instead of a fixed set of ratios, it runs a steel belt or chain between two pulleys that change diameter, giving an infinite spread of ratios between the lowest and the highest. It's genuinely elegant engineering, and when it works, it's smooth and efficient. The catch is that all the engine's torque passes through the friction between that belt and those pulley faces, and friction generates heat, and heat cooks the fluid, and cooked fluid stops, maintaining the film that keeps the belt from polishing grooves into the pulleys. Once it's shuttering, it's not adjustable, it's a unit. The class action alleged poor performance, shuddering and shaking, and complete transmission failure accused Nissan of knowing about the problem for years, and resolved with the company paying $277.7 million while admitting no wrongdoing. Here's the number. For 2014 to 2018, Rogues, the original coverage of 60 months or 60,000 miles, was extended to 84 months or 84,000 miles, whichever comes first. Owners who paid out of pocket inside that window could claim up to $5,000, but repairs that happened outside the extended period got nothing. 24,000 extra miles, on a vehicle people keep for 10 years and 150,000 miles. That window was not calculated to make owners whole. It was calculated to cover the failures the company already knew about and stop precisely there. Hold that thought. It's the heart of what I want to say in a few minutes. Should you avoid every CVT? No, and anybody who tells you that is selling simplicity. Toyota, Honda, and Subaru all use them successfully. The difference is torque capacity, cooling, and fluid discipline. If you own any CVT, change the fluid on a schedule you set, I'd say every 30,000 miles regardless of what the book claims, and check that there's a cooler in the loop. Buy instead a used Toyota RAV4 or Honda CR-V from the same years, or the new RAV4 if the budget stretches. The 2026 car starts at $33,350 including destination, with all-wheel drive $1,400 more where it's optional, and every trim is electrified, a regular hybrid you never plug in, or a plug-in. That hybrid transaxle is a planetary gear set with 2 electric motors and no clutch packs to burn. It is one of the most durable automatic drivetrains ever mass-produced. Number 6. The Jeep Cherokee. And here I mean 2 different vehicles. First, the used one. The KL Cherokee that arrived in 2014 debuted the ZF 9-speed transaxle, and it did not go well. The 2014 and 2015 models racked up over 7,000 transmission complaints on car complaints alone, with the 2014 accounting for around 4,000 of them, mostly harsh shifts and sudden drops into neutral. Fiat Chrysler recalled the gearbox for a tendency to shift into neutral without warning, blaming insufficient crimps in the transmission wiring harness, with the fix being a software update, and the notices went to around 500,000 owners across several models. Second, the new one. The reintroduced 2026 Cherokee lands at the bottom of the reliability rankings on an all-new, unproven hybrid powertrain paired with a small turbocharged 1.6-liter, against a brand record of consistently low survey scores and frequent recalls. That's a prediction, not a measurement. Nobody has ownership data on a car this new, and I'd rather say that plainly than pretend otherwise. But an untested hybrid system, a tiny turbo engine, and a company with that recall history is 3 bets stacked on one roll. Buy instead a Subaru Forester. All-wheel drive comes standard on every trim, the visibility is the best in the class by a wide margin, and it does the honest vehicle thing better than almost anything sold today. Number 7. The Volkswagen Tiguan, particularly 2018 through 2021. Nice car. Feels a class above its price, steers properly, and the interior shames most of this list. It's held back by ongoing engine concerns, with reports of turbocharger failures sometimes occurring very early in ownership, and it sits in the middle tier of reliability rankings alongside GM's compact twins, dinged for engine, electrical and transmission issues, and higher repair costs. The one to know about is the timing chain drive. On the EA808 family, the chain runs off the back of the engine, and the tensioner keeps it taut. The design in the earlier cars can fail to hold hydraulic pressure or lose its mechanical lock, letting the chain go slack. You hear a rattle on startup, and if it's ignored, the chain can jump a tooth and destroy the engine. Tensioner replacement runs roughly 286 to 1697 for a part that exists solely to keep another part tight. If you already own one, that brief rattle in the first second after a cold start is not normal, it is not just German, and it is the cheapest warning you will ever get. Buy instead a Mazda CX-5 or the CX-5 again. You give up a little backseat room and gain a decade. That's 7 of 12, and if the list has been useful so far, Subscribing is the whole ask. It costs you nothing and it's the only thing that decides whether videos like this keep getting made. 5 left, and number 10 is the one where the manufacturer itself effectively agreed with everything I'm about to say by killing the vehicle outright. Number 8, the Hyundai Tucson and Kia Sportage, but only in specific years, and this one needs a fair hearing. The engine settlement covered roughly 2.3 million Hyundais, including 2014, 2015, 2018, and 2019 Tucsons, and 1.8 million Kias, including 2011 to 2019 Sportage, Sorento, and Optima models with 2.0 and 2.4-liter direct injection engines. The alleged defect came from an improper manufacturing and machining process, causing the connecting rod bearings to fail progressively, circulating metal debris through the engine via the oil. The remedy is the part worth understanding, because it's clever and grim at the same time. The knock sensor detection system monitors engine vibration for the patterns that develop as a rod bearing wears abnormally, and when it sees them, the malfunction lamp blinks continuously and the vehicle drops into a reduced power protection mode. For qualifying vehicles, warranty coverage stretched to 15 years or 150,000 miles for connecting rod bearing damage, and it transfers to later private owners, so software that listens for your engine destroying itself and pulls the power before the rod comes through the block. That coverage is genuinely valuable. If you own one of these, get the update done and keep the paperwork. But understand what it is. It's a smoke detector, not a fire department. And a fair note, current Tucsons and Sportages are not those cars. They're mid-pack now, meaningfully improved, and the warranty is the best in the business. My caution is confined to those older model years and to the used lot. Buy instead, if you're shopping those years used, a same vintage RAV4 or CRV and expect to pay $2,000 or $3,000 more for it. That premium is the market pricing, exactly what we've been discussing. Number 9. The Range Rover Evoque and the Discovery Sport, bought used because they look like $60,000 and cost $18,000. I'll be straight, I've had fewer of these apart than anything else on this list, so I'm leaning harder on ownership data than on my own hands here. RepairPal rates the Evoque 3.0 out of 5.0, 9th out of 11 luxury compact SUVs, with average annual repair and maintenance of $1,100 against $859 for the segment and $650 across all vehicles. One ownership cost analysis puts the chance of needing a major repair in the first 10 years at just over 50%. A coin flip, and the individual repairs are not compact SUV money. A turbo replacement can exceed $2,500, transmission work over $3,000, and the vehicle sheds roughly 50 to 60% of its value in 5 years. That depreciation figure comes from a company that sells extended warranties, so take it with the appropriate pinch of salt, but the direction is not in dispute and the used lot prices confirm it. Here's the trap, stated plainly. The reason that beautiful thing is affordable is that the first owner already paid to find out what it costs. You are not getting a deal. You are getting handed the bill they walked away from. Buy instead a Lexus NX or a used Acura RDX. Less badge, same leather, a tenth of the drama. Second pause, and this is the shift I want you to notice. Numbers 1 through 9 were all failures of a component. An engine, a gearbox, a bearing. Something specific broke. The last 3 are different. These are vehicles where nothing in particular is wrong and the whole proposition is still bad. Cars that were obsolete before you signed, or orphaned after, or that lose money faster than they lose tread. That's a harder thing to see on a test drive, and it's the more expensive mistake. Number 10 first, and it's the one I promised you. Number 10. The Dodge Hornet. After just 3 model years and total deliveries of 39,260 units, the Hornet is being discontinued in the United States. For scale, the CR-V sells 10 times that in a single year. Dealers were still struggling to move leftover cars, with more than 80% of the electrified inventory sitting unsold. It's built in Pomigliano d'Arco, Italy, shares nearly all its parts with the Alfa Romeo Tonale, and carries a 15% tariff under the EU agreement. By late 2025, it was on its 9th recall since launching as a 2023 model, with the plug-in hybrid drawing particular blame and several owners having had to replace the gasoline engine. There's a widely repeated dealer-side claim that the car generated more than 60 technical service bulletins in its first 2 years. I couldn't verify that count from a primary source, so I'm flagging it as unconfirmed rather than leaning on it. The 9 recalls are documented. That's enough. My read, and this is inference, not reporting, is that the official explanation of tariffs and the policy environment is true but incomplete. Cars with strong reputations survive a price increase. Cars sitting on lots for 400 days do not. Buy instead. If you wanted the Hornet because it looked sharp and moved quickly, a Mazda CX-30 with the turbo does all of that and will still have a dealer network in 6 years. Number 11. The Mitsubishi Outlander Sport and Eclipse Cross. And here I'll break my own pattern because the reliability case isn't there. Consumer Reports puts the Outlander Sport at about average reliability compared to other cars of the same model year. It doesn't break unusually often, that's not why it's here. It's here because of everything around the vehicle. The usual complaints are a small dealer network, poor parts supply, and weak customer service. New pricing sits between roughly $24,900 and $32,100, and it sheds about 47.5% of its value over 5 years. You're paying near Corolla Cross money for a design generations behind, then losing half of it, then hunting for a dealer. Buy instead a Honda HR-V. It starts around $26,600 with a 158 horsepower 2.0-liter 4. It's one of the most reliable vehicles Honda currently makes, naturally aspirated, no turbocharger, no direct injection. It is slow, it is also the closest thing to a modern appliance in the good sense. Number 12. The Volkswagen ID.4, and by extension, any first-generation electric small SUV bought new. Owners reported problems with batteries, charging, electronics, body hardware, and climate control, which is to say most of the vehicle, and one of 14 recalls covered 16,207 units for faulty door handles that could allow doors to open while driving, remedied with new handles and software. Like most non-Tesla EVs, it also sheds value fast, with one analysis putting depreciation around 63%. I'm not anti-EV. The powertrain itself has fewer moving parts than anything else on this list, and that's a real engineering advantage. The problem is that the car around it is now a software product, and you are the field test. Let the first owner absorb the recalls and the depreciation, then buy it at year 4 for half price with the bugs patched out. Buy instead the RAV4 Hybrid, or a 2 to 3 year old electric SUV that somebody else has already paid the tuition on. Now the part I actually want you to take away, because it isn't about any single vehicle. Look at what these companies offered you once they knew. Ford knew injectors were cracking and leaking fuel. The remedy owners received did not include repairing the leak. It was a drain tube to carry the gasoline safely to the ground, plus software. Nissan knew the transmissions were failing. What you got was 24,000 additional miles of coverage and then nothing. GM knew the engines were drinking oil. One documented response was a calibration change that told the car to ask for oil changes more often, the fix being, in effect, put more oil in it. Hyundai knew about the rod bearings. What you got was software that listens for the sound of your engine dying and shuts the power down before the failure completes. Every one of those is technically a response, not one of them is a repair. And that's the sentence I want you to be able to read from now on, because it's the same sentence every time. When a defect is expensive to fix and cheap to manage, you will be handed the management and told it's the fix. A tube instead of an injector. A software patch instead of a wiring harness. A shorter oil change interval instead of piston rings. A warranty extension calculated to the mile where the failure curve flattens out. Nobody sat in a room and decided to hurt you. That's not how it works, and I'm not interested in pretending it is. Somebody did arithmetic. The cost of a proper repair times the number of affected units against the cost of a partial remedy times the same number, minus the ones that will be out of coverage by the time they fail. That second number is smaller. It is always smaller. And the difference between those two numbers doesn't vanish, it moves. It becomes your tow truck, your rental car, your Tuesday off work, your $6,000 at 140,000 miles. The reason I want you angry about this specifically, rather than angry in general, is that general anger changes nothing, and this changes everything about how you shop. When you see a warranty extension, don't read it as generosity. Read it as a map of the failure curve drawn by the only people who have the data. When you see a recall, don't read the headline, read the remedy. If the remedy is software for a hardware problem, you now know exactly what you're looking at. They told you it was fixed, it was contained. Those are different words, and from here on you can tell them apart. Let me finish somewhere less bleak because there's something worth saying about the alternatives. Notice what the good ones have in common. A bigger engine working less hard. A transmission with fewer things to burn. Front-wheel drive with a simple coupling instead of a complicated one. Not a single one of the vehicles I recommended is technically impressive. The CR-V is not clever. The Forester is not clever. The RAV4's hybrid system is 30 years of the same idea, refined. There's a kind of engineering judgment that shows up as absence. The turbocharger somebody didn't fit, the ninth gear somebody decided wasn't worth it, the direct injection left off because port injection was good enough and doesn't coke up the valves. You can't photograph any of that. It doesn't appear on a spec sheet or in a review. It only shows up in year 8 as a bill that never arrives. Learning to see it is a skill, and it's one of the few consumer skills that genuinely compounds. Get good at reading what a company chose to spend money on, and you'll never again be the person who bought the thing that looked like a bargain. So here's the procedure. Not a rule of thumb, something you can run on any small SUV, new or used, in about 20 minutes. 1. Find the exact engine and transmission, not just the model. A 2022 Compass with the 2.0 turbo and a 2020 with the Tiger Shark are different vehicles wearing the same badge. 2. Search that engine or transmission code together with the words class action and warranty extension. If a settlement exists, read the covered years and the mileage limits. That document is the manufacturer's own map of where the failures live. 3. Run the VIN through the Federal Recall Database and read the remedy on every open and closed campaign. Software fix for a mechanical fault is your red flag. 4. Price the worst realistic repair before you buy. Engine replacement, transmission replacement, timing chain service. If that number would end your ownership of the car is too expensive regardless of the sticker. 5. Check whether the powertrain is in its first 3 model years. If it is and you can't afford surprises, wait. Somebody else can do the testing. Run those 5 and you will not end up with any vehicle on today's list by accident. Here's what that buys you. Not excitement. Year 7, 130,000 miles, and the thing starts on a cold morning, and the only money you've spent is oil, tires, brakes, and a battery. Your neighbor's payment book is thicker than yours, and his SUV is at the dealer for the 3rd time this year. Nothing happens. That's the whole reward. A long series of expensive things that never happened to you. Now I want to hear the one you regret, not the car you love. The one you bought, the one that seemed sensible on the lot, and what it eventually cost you to get out of it. Put the model, the year, and the number in the comments. Those confessions are worth more to the next person watching than anything I've said because you paid for that information and they get it free. And if you own one of the 12 and your experience has been nothing but good, I mean it, come and say so with mileage and service history attached. There are excellent examples of every vehicle on this list. I'd rather be argued with using evidence than agreed with out of politeness. I read the replies, everyone, and the corrections end up in later videos more often than you'd think. If this was useful, subscribing is what keeps it coming. One thread I deliberately left alone today. What a hybrid battery actually costs to replace once these cars hit 15 years old, and why almost every number floating around out there is either a dealer quote or a guess. I've been collecting real invoices on that for a while, and I'm not ready to talk about it yet. But I will be. Until then, check your oil, read the remedy, not the headline, and don't buy the first 3 model years of anything.